Welcome to yet another Wellness Wednesday. Welcome to Ask Your Doctors. I am Dr. K, and today, yet again, I am accompanied by someone who's going to feature a lot in today's episode because indeed we are discussing one of her favorite subjects. Today we are discussing immunizations, vaccines, whichever way you call it, but our pop-up doctor, Dr. Bonolo Mashishi, is going to let us know the difference between all these terms. How are you, Doc?
Hello, how are you?
Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
It's better with you here.
Thank you.
Please stay.
Thank you.
Please, I beg you. They say it's your favorite subject. What do you say?
It is. It's definitely one
Which
of my
part
favorites.
do you like?
Everything.
Everything?
Everything.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
So later on, we will go viral as you tell us COVID updates, right? But you'll be doing it right here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So regarding vaccines, let's start at the beginning, the heated topic.
Okay.
We have anti-vaxxers, we have pro-vaxxers. Please tell us.
Who's who? So I think the two groups have been at each other's heads for the longest of time since vaccines have actually been developed.
Even before COVID.
Even before COVID.
Yes.
So I think people must understand that. And just to simply break it down, someone who's anti-vaccine is someone who downright refuses to get vaccinated.
Okay.
But the science tells us that it's, people who refuse vaccine are a group of people and there's an umbrella. Majority of people are what we call vaccine hesitant, where they're not really sure. But I think with COVID, everybody has just been grouped as anti-vaxxer when majority of people are actually just not sure and they're vaccine hesitant.
I suppose, Doc, the reason why anti-vaccine, pro-vaccine, those two terms, we are in the middle of a pandemic. Decisions have to be made. So you can't stand in the middle. You have to decide, are we doing this or are we doing this?
Yes.
So that's why there were only two options. Not even that much prominence on vaccine hesitancy anymore.
Yeah, no, I think it is right that we need to get as many people on the side of pro-vaccination, given the fact that we're in the pandemic, yeah.
So we use platforms like these ones to educate people and make them decisive about how we move forward.
Yes, that's very true.
Just to remind our audience out there, this is not a program on, this is not an episode on vaccines for COVID. It's vaccines and immunization in general. Remember, somewhere in the middle of April, we are in vaccination week. So we are trying to conscientize everyone about vaccinations because of that eventuality. In any case, Doc, so apparently there's different types of vaccines. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, so we have different type of vaccines, and the difference comes because of how we approach the manufacturing process of these different vaccines. Remember, the purpose of a vaccine is to teach the body, right? So traditional methods used what we call whole organisms or the whole bug, and this bug was either weakened or inactivated in such a way that doesn't cause disease. But with improved technology, that approach has now shifted. So a lot of the vaccines that are developed in modern times are changed in such a way that the vaccine is designed that it contains certain parts of the organism. So like now we have RNA, for instance, with COVID, there are some that have protein only instead of the whole organism.
Okay. The things that you're talking about are components of the cell of the bug.
They are the bug itself.
Yes.
Yes, and the components of the bug, yes.
Okay. So you're teaching the body to do what?
You're teaching the body to respond and build up a defense should the body come across that particular bug. So in that way, you kind of rev up the body's immune system.
So the vaccine is a teaser.
It's a teaser. I like that one. Yeah, definitely.
Sure. And generally, can we live our lives without these vaccines, these things that teach the body how to defend itself? Is it generally a good thing that we have them? Should we be using them? Do we encourage society to move more towards vaccines? I know we've been having them in our children's school cards, whether COVID was there or not, that we must remember, guys. And how has it fared? Is this a practice that has brought modern medicine to to become more manageable. We eradicated polio, da 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 da. Can you tell us about the history of vaccines in that sense?
Yeah, I think, you know, the saying is that vaccines are one of the success stories of the 21st century, certainly when it comes to medicine and healthcare. And this is related to the benefit and the impact that vaccines have had in controlling and, as you've rightfully said, eradicating some conditions. So it's really something that we could all benefit from, you know, but unfortunately not all conditions have a vaccine. But the ones that do have vaccines have shifted in a way that they are more manageable. The cost of actually treating someone with the disease versus the cost of actually preventing you from getting the disease is quite substantial. Yeah.
So someone out there that's going to get a normal vaccine, let's talk about the most primary ones.
Okay.
What are the most common 3 that we get for babies, and what do they help us with?
So when you're born, you initially in the first couple of hours, you get vaccinated. You get vaccinated. One of the ones that you get is for TB, against TB.
Okay.
And that's one of the oldest vaccines that we have, you know, since time. And obviously, as you grow older, as a child, you'll get more vaccines. And common ones include against measles, against pneumococcus, you know, you get against hepatitis B as a child. So there are quite a number of vaccines that we get, and we call these vaccine preventable conditions.
So basically, when a child is born, he's fortified against typical bugs. And one of them is TB, one of them hepatitis. I know they recently in the last 10 years introduced rotavirus. It was about a year or too late for my daughter because she had rotavirus.
Yes.
And then they introduced pneumococcal vaccine around the same time. So this prevents the body getting pneumonia.
So it prevents actually the severe types. So, you know, vaccines work in different ways, but the idea is to prevent the most severe types of these conditions. So that's what they do predominantly. Yeah.
Just a reminder, we're talking about regular vaccines that are always included in our immunization card, which forms part of when you register for school. So vaccines are not a new thing. Vaccines are going on as we speak, whether we are protesting or pro the one for COVID, they are continuing.
Yes.
In any case. Yeah, you did say, one of the questions from social media says, have they proven effective throughout the years? You say they are one of the wonders of modern medicine in the 21st century.
Definitely, yes.
How did it happen with polio? Everybody refers to polio. What happened there?
You know, we talk, just to contextualize maybe, when we're talking about the impact and effect of vaccines from a public health perspective, there are different levels. The first is to control, which is kind of contain a particular disease using vaccines. The next is to eliminate it. Elimination meaning that we remove it from certain populations, certain regions, and the top tier would be eradication. So eradication is the goal because it means that that particular disease has been removed from all parts of the world. So for a disease to be eradicated, they choose according to certain criteria. Polio has been targeted for eradication for close to 30 years now, just over 30 years. And by and large, polio has been eliminated. There are 3 types of polio. So 2 polio types have been eradicated in the world, and there's only 1 that remains, and it's been eliminated in many parts of the world, and just 2 countries really remain problematic.
And these are which countries?
It's in the Middle East, which still struggle because of conflict and access to vaccines, etc.
One of them, Yemen, maybe?
Afghanistan, Pakistan is one of the 2. So polio there's this huge drive to get polio eradicated. The only other condition that's been eradicated was smallpox. So polio is next in line, and that's why there's just this big drive, because it's literally the last 1% of people that need to be targeted to
Okay.
get there.
Okay, Doc. A question from social media says, doesn't the vaccine weaken the body? Why don't we just get ourselves exposed to real bugs and just be stronger people? Do vaccines really have to intervene between us and our fight against bugs? What do you say?
Yes, I mean, no, firstly, let me just answer the first question. Vaccines don't make the body weaker. In actual fact, they do the opposite.
Okay.
They boost the strength of your ability to fight against diseases. Obviously, when you're exposing yourself naturally to certain bugs, there are complications. And history tells us and science tells us that when you're going to go that way, you're going to lose a lot more lives. Versus when you intervene, for instance, with something like a vaccine.
I know Sweden tried that trick. They said they're not going to bother, they're not going to close the country, and in no time they had lost 5,000 people that day.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's quite, and it's quite unethical because, I mean, if you had to choose between a life-saving intervention versus I'm going to put you in the front line to die potentially, what would you choose?
So vaccines are basically we shall die trying. Yeah. No, but we try to preempt a rampant disease. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Can you just give us 2 or 3 vaccines that adults are to take regularly? Because we're going to spend a lot of time on child vaccines.
On child vaccines. So the first would be shingles. I don't know if people are quite aware of a vaccine being available to prevent shingles.
Okay.
You know, especially our elderly population group. Shingles is available. I mean, shingles vaccine is available. And then also we have other vaccines that obviously overlap with the childhood vaccines. Influenza is one of them, and hepatitis B. The difference in these between childhood and adult is really related to how the vaccines are actually given, the dose of the vaccine that's given.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's some vaccines that are truly, it could be the same pathogen. For instance, we have influenza vaccines for children and adults, but there are some influenza vaccines that cannot be given to children and only in adults, and vice versa. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the kids. There's conspiracies that vaccines worsen chances of getting autism. What's your take?
So this debate has been ongoing for years. I think when measles vaccines actually came out for the first time, and there's been evidence, you know, showing that there is no link. There is absolutely no link between vaccines and autism. Vaccines don't cause autism at all.
Okay. So you say no?
No.
Okay, fine. I don't know what the people that are anti-vaxxers that believe autism is a link to thinking, but that's a story for another day. Maybe we should get a counter argument from. If anyone out there believes vaccines cause autism, please go to our website, write to us, and let us have your point of view add out so that we can be a bit more balanced.
And provide the proof as well, because, you know, there's evidence, concrete evidence that shows that there is no link. So I would be interested to see what they bring up.
Okay.
Yeah.
You and I have answered this next question that says children getting exposed to lots of vaccines. We've answered why, and we're just fortifying them against what's coming ahead. And you say it's mainly because we want to protect against severe forms of disease that are caused by the bugs that they get exposed to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Why do children still fall sick after getting vaccinated? This is a public health question where lay people want to know. I thought it would stop everything.
Yes. So it's a very interesting question because sometimes people fail to understand a normal reaction following vaccination versus someone actually getting sick. So the normal reaction, so when your body starts reacting to a vaccine, you will get some sort of symptoms, usually flu-like symptoms, and that's a good sign that you're looking for because it tells you things are working. There are some vaccines, unfortunately, that may potentially give you a lot more severe symptoms, and we have what we call adverse events, and these are usually rare, and there are some vaccines, unfortunately, where adverse events mimic the natural infection of that, what the vaccine is trying to protect.
An interesting question from our crew, Doc. They always sneak in questions. Do some people have an inherent allergy towards vaccines, and what are the options? Let's stick to influenza.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, allergies are not uncommon.
Okay.
Usually people are allergic to the different components or the preservatives that are used in the vaccines. And so when it comes to influenza, we have actually quite a number of vaccines that are available. They are made differently. The manufacturing process is actually different. So you have people who commonly have egg allergies. Those people are usually discouraged from using influenza vaccines that have been potentially processed in that sort of way. And then you also have what we call live attenuated influenza vaccines. These are weakened. It's the virus, but it's weakened. So people who generally struggle with immune system issues, they're compromised for whatever reason, they generally are told to avoid using those sort of vaccines. There are other alternatives for influenza vaccines that are available for people who have allergies.
So if you have suspicions that you don't react well to vaccines, don't stay away from vaccines. Discuss with your practitioner.
Definitely.
And find options.
Yes, and don't assume that the same thing that happened to you will happen for all the other vaccines.
Okay. So you've already answered this next social media question that says, can a vaccine give someone the disease that it's supposed to prevent? You said some people react differently, may have the actual light.
Yes, it's definitely going to be a dampened version of it, yeah.
Okay. What's the risk of not vaccinating? A question asked from social media.
The risk would be you get all the complications potentially that are associated with that disease. So for instance, let's take something like measles. Measles in children can cause blindness. So if you're going to risk that for your child, you run the risk of your child getting measles. They could recover without complications, but they could complicate, and why take that risk of something that's easily preventable with the vaccine? Yeah.
Just a reminder, generally, the fact that we're not seeing rampant disease, these vaccines are actually working from birth.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Same question for COVID. Just please remind us, what are the advantages of vaccinating for COVID?
So firstly, it's not designed to stop you from getting the virus. You can still get the virus, but it will help you in the disease that you get. You are less likely to get something so severe that it leads you into a hospital or you actually die from it. And also the body's ability to fight COVID is actually boosted and broader with the vaccine, which is something that you want, especially with all the variants that we're seeing now. And we have a complication of COVID. It's called long COVID, and the vaccines actually prevent or help in long COVID as well.
Okay, cool. Have we reached herd immunity for COVID? Whatever that means.
Yes, I think maybe let's start with explaining
what it means.
What herd immunity means. And if it's okay,
it is okay.
I think let me use an analogy.
Okay.
So we typically have wildfires in South Africa, and when a wildfire starts out, it usually goes rampant. It attacks all the grass and trees, whatever is available, until it reaches a time where there's no longer grass or exactly, yeah. And it just naturally dies down.
Okay.
So the same happens when we have a new bug introduced into a population or into a new place. Initially, it will run like wildfire because there's so many people who, are seeing it for the first time. But should it be left in that way, naturally it will reach a time frame where it dies down. So herd immunity is actually, it just allows for that process to be actually quickened. it protects us. So it's an indirect benefit really that we see. So when we have herd immunity, it's called population immunity. So if I'm protected and majority of us are protected and you're not protected, it means that we've reached the equilibrium where the fire dies down and you will be protected because majority of us are immune and protected.
And our symptoms will not be so bad that we are highly infectious.
So herd immunity has less to do with the symptoms, but rather with the ability to spread in a community. So
I see what you mean.
Yes, so herd immunity protects and limits that space and time for a virus to spread in a population, really. Unfortunately, herd immunity is not as simple or straightforward as we get naturally infected or we get vaccinated, therefore we will reach herd immunity. It's quite complex and there are a number of things that need to be considered. So you can have herd immunity in the short term, but that does not guarantee a long-term protection.
Okay. Now, the next question says isolation and herd immunity. Do you think we are still overreacting or do we still need to keep things in check?
I think we are not overreacting. Personally, I don't think so, because you don't want to do away with a lot of things at the same time, because we could go back. We're trying to move forward. And also we're trying by all means to limit further spread. And isolation is one of the mechanisms that we do have.
I think also we're trying to provide guidance towards professional occupational spaces, whether it's schools or workplaces, because you don't want everyone to be making their own rules as they go along.
Yes.
Because in this company they decide you must go home, you mustn't go home, and then there's confusion, then there's CCMA and there's problems.
Yes, and herd immunity will differ depending on the situation. You can have high herd immunity in the community at large, but it does not translate to the same in the classroom perhaps or in the workplace, because we all come from different areas and we come from different places.
Come to think of it, the children have gone to school and there's no drama.
I'm glad, Shem. I really am glad.
No, I mean, there's no union saying this, minister saying that. The children are just back in class and there's no schools being closed down.
Yes.
And there's no 500 million being spent on fumigating. It's amazing.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So how long does immunity last with COVID? Vaccines?
So we are still looking at the long-term durability of this immunity, given the fact that we've been with vaccines maybe 2 years now. But certainly we are seeing protection up to a year, which is good. So for the longer term, we're not really sure, but hopefully it's
long enough.
It's long enough, yeah.
Or maybe hopefully COVID just gives in.
I doubt it.
And booster shots, do you know, can you say something about them quickly?
So booster shots, again, are not unique to COVID-19. There are some vaccines, for instance, shingles.
Hepatitis as well?
Hepatitis B, where you get boosters. The purpose of a booster is literally to rev it up again and to get you to a certain level. For your immune response. And this will differ for each pathogen that we are exposed to. But certainly they allow us to continuously be at a certain level to be protected always. So I don't want to focus on how many doses for COVID, because it's not unique to COVID. Yes, there are quite a number of them, yeah.
Okay, now we go viral as usual. We can't deny our people the stuff they're used to. And we jump right into it. We're going to talk COVID updates. What is IgA in this context?
Okay, so IgA is a different class of antibodies. We have different classes of antibodies, and IgA is one of them. IgA is typically found at mucosal surfaces, usually the gut or the respiratory tract. So it's one of our first line antibody responses that we get at the mucosal level. And remember, all antibodies work together. So all the different classes help each other and prime each other for the big bigger effect. Yeah. So IgAs, will be initially primed, and then you'll get your other classes coming up.
So you say they are antibodies?
They are antibodies. It's a different class of antibodies.
And antibodies is the soldiers of the body?
Yes, they are soldiers of the bodies.
So
one of the soldiers of the body.
They need to be teased for them to respond and protect us?
They do. They do.
Okay.
They do.
So the question says, how can it build immunity to respiratory diseases such as COVID? So you already explained it's lining up the mucosal surfaces.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you once again.
And it's transmitted from through breast milk. So even if you don't see the pathogen first, if you're receiving breast milk from your mom, you will get the IgA, and that will line your gut. So should you see something like rotavirus, you already have that IgA, which is one of the first responders, obviously, to some of the pathogens at the mucosal surfaces. Yeah.
Babies, mothers, natural immunity, 12 months. What's the relation?
Babies, mothers, immunity.
Breast milk,
So breast milk, we have what we call passive transfer of some of our antibodies from the mother to the child. This happens in the later, just before birth, in the later phases of pregnancy, and also via breast milk. So there are certain conditions where babies are high risk for getting severely sick, especially in the first 6 months of life. And that's why we recommend that mothers breastfeed, especially in that first 6 months, because the antibodies that the mom gives the child protects them. There are conditions like RSV, there are conditions like respiratory syncytial virus, which is very dangerous in the less than 6 month period, but they are protected because of the mom. The other reason, if the mom is unable to breastfeed, maybe we recommend vaccination of pregnant women, because again, they are able to transfer their antibodies to the baby. So it's also an indirect vaccination sort of that the baby gets, yeah. Okay,
so people say children are weakest in the first 12 months because their immune system hasn't picked up natural immunity.
Yes.
Can you elaborate?
The immune system, so we talk about extremes of age. The babies less than 1 year and the elderly, their immune systems don't respond as quickly as they should. They're not as mature, or so you need to help them and protect them in that way. And that's why most vaccinations, especially for children, take place in that time period. So most of the children within their first year of life should have gotten a lot of their vaccines. And then obviously in the adults, especially the elderly, they also need to get their vaccines.
And you know how our forefathers and foremothers used to do it?
No.
They used to say, keep the children away from people.
Yeah, which also...
Because intruders can bring too many different things when the immune system is still too weak.
Which is true.
This is African science that is always, or traditional science in other communities as well. But in any case, please tell us how people can follow you for all these advices. I follow on your page and
yeah, thank you. So to follow me on Instagram, it's Dr. Mashishi. It's Dr. Bonolo Mashishi. And on Facebook, also on Twitter as well. But definitely Instagram and Facebook is where I'm active.
Okay. And guys, you can also find Dr. Bonolo as well as all our other experts, guests and specialists that have been on the show on our website. You go to askyourdoctors.co.za and you go to the part where it says find a doctor. You click there and you can book your appointment with all our specialists. While you're on there on YouTube, please remember to subscribe so that you always get updates when there's new episodes that have been uploaded. And go to social media, Facebook, Instagram, DM, give us questions, suggest topics that you would like us to cover, suggest practitioners that you think would suit this kind of platform where your favorite practitioner can join us. It is our show, it is your show. Remember, our theme is the best you, by you, through us, through you, everything. Yeah. Until then, keep asking away.